Hey everyone, we are live for our monthly Ask the Trainer. We have a topic to discuss with you, which I think is a really fun one and a really important one. As always, during our Ask the Trainer sessions, you can type in your questions in the chat box at any time. Your questions can be about the topic we're discussing, or they can be about anything dog training related, canine fitness related, or dog yoga related. So, we're going to talk for our session about treats and using food rewards and how to be most effective with our treats. So, the first thing I want to say is using food and treats to train your dog is a super effective way to train new behaviors, build your relationship with your dog, and to get a lot of repetition in as you're teaching new behaviors. So, using food is such a great tool in dog training. Working with your treats so that they hold value, we'll talk a little bit about that. There are different values naturally with treats, ones that are higher value, ones that are lower value, and also how we actually use them to keep their value high, right? And then also another big thing I have happen and in terms of dog training and teaching people is I get the question of how do I get my dogs off of food? Sometimes we use a lot of food in training and it's like, how do we get it so our dog does the behavior we don't necessarily have to feed for every little thing? So we'll talk about that. And how to use food to strengthen your relationship and changing how you use food, not only to teach your behaviors, but have your dog be enthusiastic or your dog be calm with you and kind of matching that state of being with how you use food. So much in dog training, we give our dogs mixed signals accidentally with our body language, sometimes with how we do things. So we really want our dog to relax, but we're feeding very quickly, for instance. So when that's happening, um, you're giving a mixed signal, right, for your dog. So talking about treats and using treats. So when we're using treats, we really want them to have value. So, how I usually think of using food rewards is when I'm using, when I'm working with the dog in lower distraction environments, I use a lower value treat or food reward. So, if I'm working inside my house and a dog is food motivated, I will use the dog's kibble or a very kind of dry or low value treat to get them to work with me. This allows it to be almost like a scale of value in your treats. If you were to take your dog outside and you're asking for the same behaviors, maybe with not a lot of distractions, but just being outside, sometimes they'll work for that low value still, but some dogs need to bump up to a more like a medium value treat and work with that. As we get more distractions, dogs going by, people, busier environments, you may need to also scale up the value of your treats to something really high value, like cut up pieces of chicken for some dogs that are really, really reactive to people or dogs, or cut up, sometimes I'll use these little frozen meatballs and cut them up, or a um, kind of dog food that's, cooked, but a little bit higher value, or really freeze dried treats, something that's really, really has a lot of smell to it, and the taste is a lot higher for your dog. So I want you to think of treats as a scale and using that. So the more distractions, the higher the value, right? And I've also had the question of people being like, well, I don't want to use that kind of food. I don't want to have to go that high. It's to me, whatever the dog responds to is what I'm going to use. So if a dog will work for low value, I'll stay low value. But if a dog is really reactive to other dogs, for instance, and needs my highest value food to get their attention on myself, if I'm working the dog or the owner or handler of the dog, I'm going to go there. And then over time, maybe we lessen the value of the food or just keep it there. Another thing I use high value for is recalls. So when you ask your dog to come and leave other distractions in the environment, whether it's just sniffing or there's another dog, your dog's on a long line or off leash, you're going to use high value. You really want to reward your dog for leaving all of those things and coming to be with you. So important. With that being said, How do we work not having our dogs always need the food? Right? So when you think of using that scale, that's one step to working with your dog so they're not always reliant on high value food. The other thing I've realized about working with young puppies and also dogs over time is they're really smart and they like to be held accountable for what they know. So even a young puppy understands sit behavior. At first, we're going to tell the dog to sit, little puppy, feed him a treat, pairing the behavior with a reward. Dog sits, they get a treat. Dog sits, they get a treat. So they start to anticipate every time I sit, I get something. Pretty quickly, once a dog knows that behavior, and we'll use sit as an example, we start to fade the food off. So if I'm in a kitchen and I have a young puppy and they sit and I ask them to sit, I will intermittently reward. So maybe every other sit I'll feed, or if it was a really quick sit, I'll feed for that. But I quickly move off the food and just move to verbal praise. When I'm using food initially, I match it with verbal praise. So the dog sits, I'm like, good pup, feed. So they hear my voice rewarding them as well. Start to pull that food away. This way, you don't go from an 8-week-old puppy to 6 months and you've been always feeding for that simple behavior. And you hold your dog a little more accountable. Okay, that's part of your relationship. I asked you to sit, you did it. I'm happy with you. I'm smiling. They pick up on that body language. And dogs want to do that. They want to work with us and be in partnership. And then I'll do that with all behaviors that my dog learns as intermittent rewards. Intermittently rewarding, where you're not rewarding for every behavior or everything once your dog understands a behavior, starts to become like a lottery or kind of like gambling, right? They don't know when they're going to get that treat. So it becomes more exciting and more enticing for them. So doing that. When I intermittently reward a dog, I'll really look for really sharp, good behaviors to pay them with the food. And if they do it like, okay, in the beginning stages, it's verbal praise. You can eventually get to a space with your dog where you ask for a behavior and they know it really well and they kind of do it slow or kind of half-hearted. And you can say, no, I'm not going to take that. That's not what I want. Let's try again. Ask your dog to do it again. They do it with speed or they do it with enthusiasm or really crisp behavior. They get verbal praise and they get a high reward for that. So having your dog be accountable. As they grow up, we can hold them more accountable. As they mature and go through different developmental stages, we can start to kind of leverage our training and accountability with their maturity. What I'm asking of an 8-month-old puppy is different than a 10-week-old puppy. What I'm asking from River, who's lounging in the background here, as a 4-year-old dog is very different than what I asked from him, even at 2 years. But that accountability, he really steps into. And so working on more complex behaviors and teaching something new is really important. So again, using a scale with your food, intermittent reinforcement, and starting to trust that your dog will do these things without food is a big one. So working on also teaching dogs behaviors that hold up, and it's not just feeding your dog. So maybe when we walk by a distraction, we initially need to feed a lot to kind of keep our dog's attention, especially if you're working with a young dog. But eventually, I like to fade that off and ask the dog to actually look at my face and look at my eyes and give me their full attention for that reward. So it's not just feeding as we go. Your dog's learning to actually do a behavior to get that reward. And then even there, it's verbal praise and intermittent reward. So we fade it off over time. The things I don't tend to pull food off completely are when I'm working with a dog that's dog reactive. Even if the dog is really good, most of the time, I will still reinforce that behavior, because if you reinforce the behavior with a high value treat, that behavior stays strong. What we practice is always going to stay strong. If we pull it off completely, um, then that behavior can also fall away over time. Same with recalls. Chow is hair hanging out just out of screen, and River is here. So Chow's 11, River's 4. I will still bring rewards on my walk, whether it's a toy or it's high value treats. And it's intermittent. So their recalls are really strong, but to keep them strong, I always bring something here and there. They never know until that day I pull out some really high value and they're like, whoa. Again, it's a lottery system. They're older. We've had a ton of practice, but in the first 2 to 3 years of my dog's life, I am rewarding recalls all the time. Really high value, and I'm paying them a lot for them. Um, Talking about food and the amount that we use. So When I'm first teaching some behaviors, say I'm teaching a series of sit, stand, and down positions and position changes, I will start with one treat per behavior. So my dog sits, they get a treat. They lay down, they get a treat. Then I'll ask for two of those behavior for a treat, then three, then maybe five. So that's another way that you can fade some food out as well. But using the amount of food really matters. So if my dog goes to their bed and lays down, when I'm first teaching that, I like to pay a lot. So my dog might get 5 treats for doing that, and then I ask them to get off, and they might get 1 treat to get off. They go back on, they get 5, they come back off, they get 1. When I'm using a recall, sometimes I feed really small pieces, but like 10 pieces of a high value reward. So my dog thinks, wow, there's a huge paycheck when I come. Versus one little piece, they grab it and they kind of disengage and go off. So, how much of the food you use matters. When you pair a behavior or a command with many pieces of food, that becomes a very valuable thing for your dog. So the food holds more value, that command holds more value, and the behavior is much stronger. So using your food and the amount really matters here with your dog, and building some duration. If I want my dog to stay on that place or on their bed, they're going to get fed quite a bit, and then I start to space it out a little bit. So that brings us to how we use the food and the speed of which we use the food. When I want my dog to be energetic that I'm working with, I will use food in a fast manner. I'm having them follow it. Maybe they're chasing food. I'm feeding quickly. My body language is very upright, alert, and focused. And I'm usually making eye contact with my dog, engaging them with my body and with my eyes. When I want my dog to relax, I'm actually the opposite. I go from being attentive and animated to I slow everything down. I slow my body language down. My body is not standing at attention, it's relaxed. I'm kind of sitting or slinging to one direction. My shoulders are relaxed, even to the point of my breathing changes. So I soften my breathing, I slow that way down. I may look at my dog, I may look away from my dog. I'm not going to sustain that eye contact because I don't want them to be attentive and alert. I want them to slow down. If I want my dog to stay on their bed for a while, I'll assume that position and slow everything down. Your body language matters, but beyond that, your energy level matters and your breath matters. So, all of those things come into play with working with our dogs. Then we tie in food into that equation. So, with bringing food to it, if I'm moving quick, I'm using treats quick, I'm rewarding quick. When I want to slow it down, I want to slow the food delivery down as well. That's where we get into a hiccup where we have mixed signals where, okay, I want my dog to relax and I want them to turn off and I want them to chill, but I'm not breathing. I'm still animated and I'm feeding really quickly because I'm nervous that my dog's not going to do this behavior. So, really matters. So, when you're animated and you want your dog to be up, and it's great to have your dog have lots of energy. Depending on your dog, you may want your dog to, if they're kind of more low key, kind of come alive a little bit and be a little more enthusiastic about your training. Move your food, keep it upbeat. When you want to slow down, you're going to actually physically slow down your delivery of your food. When I'm delivering food to a dog, say on their place or their bed, it's nice and slow. If my dog goes to break and come up to get it, I just stop moving. I wait for my dog to settle and then I move nice and slow. I'll do treat delivery games where I'll have food in my hand, like with my fist closed, palm facing up, and move the treat in nice and slow towards my dog's nose. If they go for it, I stop. They have to back off to the point where I have it open. I move it in. They either back up and they're nice and calm, helping them to settle and be still with the food and focused, slowing everything way down. So, those are some of the tools that you can use with your food. So much in dog training, we just say, treat your dog, bring treats, but we never talk about how to use it effectively. And that's a really, really important thing of how we use our food and slowing things way, way down for our dog to be able to understand the different states of being. It also enhances your relationship. You can have this dynamic relationship with your dog that scales from being up and animated to really calm. And there's a time and place for all of that. right? Just in your everyday life with your dog and in your training and the things you like to do with your dog. So, thinking about these different techniques that we can bring to our dogs using food, there's so many different ways to train your dog. Treats are a tool, food is a tool, our hands and how we use them are a tool, our bodies are a tool, equipment are different tools, different methods of training are different tools. So, when I'm teaching new behaviors to my dogs and shaping different behaviors, I'll use a clicker and treats. The clicker kind of activates my dogs, gets them going, gets them working with me. When I'm doing dog yoga with River or TAO, there is no clicker involved. My body language with the yoga slows down. Everything we're doing slows down. The dog yoga we do with our dogs also is slow and thoughtful. Any canine fitness work that you do with me or I do with my own dogs is nice and thoughtful and slow. We want our dogs to be thinking about what they're doing in our bodies. So, how you work your dog really matters. How you use your treats really matters. And not just using food in your training. Thinking about how you bring all these things together to be a really effective trainer and owner when you're teaching your dog. A lot of this I learned through working with my own dogs and, of course, working with other people's dogs. But a lot of this body language has come from working with a lot of reactive, anxious, nervous dogs. When we can become our dog's teammate and our dog's kind of compass, right? Their true north, right? Their thing to come to look to for direction. That changes everything for our dogs. So the way we are, our dogs are a mirror and they're going to reflect that. So you can see River's really relaxed in the space here. I'm calm, I'm relaxed, I'm hanging out. This is my yoga space. So if I'm doing any work in here, it's dog yoga. If I'm teaching River to do some flow yoga with me, where he's matching the poses, I sometimes use a clicker in here, but a lot of times I'll just say yes when he does the right thing. I use kibble to train him in here, really low value food, not getting him really excited. I have another training space in my basement that I train the dogs. In that space, that's when River is more animated. We're working on different fast moving behaviors. And I want him to be a little more active. So your dog will also associate different rooms and spaces with different energy and conditioning them to do that. So my dogs, when I come into this space, will really just lay down and rest because they're anticipating we're doing yoga, calm touch, canine massage, stretching, or a flow, a dog yoga flow or virtual classes online with all of you. So conditioning your dog really comes from you. And then the space also, rolling out a yoga mat is also something that conditions your dog to know that this is what they're doing and what to anticipate. I was leading a walk and train, which is one of the training adventures that I lead here in Connecticut. And I had someone say to me that they started coming to my classes, my different activities, and the first time their dog wasn't too sure, they're like, what's going on? And the second time their dog immediately knew what to expect. They heard my voice, they saw the group setting, and we were in a completely different location. So dogs are smart enough to become conditioned to certain environments. So I find that we'll have different dogs come to each thing. We're in different locations, and dogs that keep coming and repetitively coming to different things, they understand what it's about. They understand it's a safe environment. They understand that energetically we're all calm. We're all kind of working with our dogs, supporting each other on the human side of things, and also the dogs being social beings pick up on each other's energy. Um, which is pretty amazing to be part of and to lead and to witness with dogs. But that all comes down to relationship. When you can find this nuance using food, but really using yourself and your body, the food is the tool to help facilitate some of that relationship. You can take it anywhere with your dog because you become that source for them, for direction, for confidence, leadership in the relationship. And it helps your dog to be calm, and it helps your dog to actually be calm in a way that they can learn more and they can be focused and better, even in high distraction environments, because that trust you've built between you is there. So thinking about that with your dog, So many people practice dog yoga with me in different locations, and the dogs understand when we get together, we roll on our mats, we sit, we start class by breathing. They understand this is what's happening and this is where it's going. So, so many different cool things you can do with your dog. It's really endless. But we're talking about treats today. So, using them effectively in your training, having them hold value, think about the treat scale from low value to high value. The more distraction you have, the higher the value of the food generally. Getting your dog off treats. So once your dog knows a behavior, starting to pull the food away, intermittently reward using your verbal praise, your body language, smiling at your dogs. They know when you're happy versus when you're not. Thinking about matching your use of food to your energy. When you're upbeat, you can use food quicker. You want that animated dog. When you want to be calm, you're moving nice and slow, working on impulse control. Thinking about the amount of food you use. So when you want to reinforce something really heavily, lots of little treats. I don't use one big one because then it's kind of just like one big and it's done. Lots of little treats, building some duration of that reward to behaviors you want. And thinking about your recalls and your come command, even if your dogs really know that, to keep that strong, bring that high value food with you. Use that, reinforce that, keep that as good behavior. Same with reactivity. You're always going to want to be prepared. So when you have that example where your dog does not react, does this awesome thing, you're prepared to really reward them. When you capture the timing in a behavior with your dog and you're prepared and you heavily reinforce it, and all that comes together at that exact moment, your dog will remember that. It's very impactful. So you always want to be prepared. We're human, we forget our treats sometimes, but it's those moments that really come together. Your dog does something amazing and you have that reward with you. That's really going to make the impact in your training and change things in your dog and how they learn, but also that trust they have in you in the relationship. So much fun that we can have with food. So that's all I have for you for Ask the Trainer. I didn't see any questions roll in today. So this will be posted to my YouTube channel right here for you to look at anytime you would like. And just a good reminder how to use treats, or if you've never thought about it before, what a great little opportunity to talk about that. So we'll see you back here on our channel real soon with more Ask the Trainers and also more dog yoga practice with our dogs. Everybody have a great day.